just want to give an example of the abundance of food that's available in even the most civilized of places. This is a pretty typical backyard, but there's, within a 10-foot area, maybe 15 different edibles that are not only delicious but medicinal as well. And one of my favorite medicinal and edible plants is Plantago Major, which is the Broadleaf Plantain. And this is an example of Broadleaf Plantain. You can tell it's plantain because of the 5 ribs on the back, and when it's pulled out from its base, it typically has these strings on the inside of it. And the veins are almost like your hands. So there's 5 veins that come out like this. And it grows in a basal rosette. And it comes up usually around mid-April out in the eastern part of the United States. And it persists late into fall as well. And the young leaves, this size and smaller, are edible. And they're high in potassium, vitamin K, iron. They're an anti-inflammatory as well. So they're good for internal inflammation because they're kind of mucilaginous. And also externally, they're useful for cuts and stings and bruises. I use them if I'm bitten by an insect because I hike barefoot quite often on my foot or stung. I'll chew up a piece of this and put the mashed up leaf on that area, and it helps to pull the toxins out of whatever area has been affected by the bite. And typically a bee sting or a hornet sting can dissipate in 10 or 15 minutes. The only thing that I haven't had a ton of luck with treating is mud wasp stings, but this definitely helps, but it hasn't completely alleviated mud wasp stings. And it has kind of an almond taste. It's not very bitter when they're young, but as they get older, they become more bitter. It's good in salads, cut up especially, just because it's kind of veiny and fibrous. A little bit further away, this is another common plant. This is growing on the edge of a garden. This is Stellaria Media, or chickweed. And chickweed is a superb lymphatic tonic. It's also high in vitamins A, C, K, and iron. And they say it helps to move the lymph fluid throughout the body. And it's also high in nitric oxide, so it helps to get your veins functioning properly and your circulation going. And you can tell that it's chickweed because as you break the stem, there's this little filament in the center. And it'll be hard to see in this video, but the stems have a row of hairs that go up until the leaf node, and then they switch sides as they go. So there's a line of it, switch sides, a line of it. And also, the flower is this white, double-sectioned compound flower that's pretty distinct. And there's only one other plant that looks similar to it, Scarlet Pimpernel, and that has a milky sap. This does not have the milky sap. It has these kind of unique flower heads and that vein on the inside that's kind of stretchy. And it has a taste almost like corn. It's very, very tasty. But it varies quite a bit plant to plant. So I would recommend, if you try it, to try quite a few plants before you make a final decision whether you like it or not. And this can be used as a salve, cut up and made into an oil. And it's good for inflammations, moving lymph fluid if you have swollen lymph nodes. There's quite a few uses for it, but it's a really good snack as well. There's also Trifolium, which was planted here on purpose as a ground cover, which is kind of a neat alternative to European grasses. And Trifolium is used to balance hormones in both men and women. It has some phytoestrogens, but it's actually lower in phytoestrogens than something like flax or soy. It helps your body to recognize and eliminate synthetic estrogens and BPA and a lot of the plastics that we make use of. Synthetic estrogens replace in our body the natural estrogens. So it creates an imbalance, especially in men, but in women as well. So this is a really good tonic hormonally for women, and a balancing tonic for men, because it helps to make use of estrogen and progesterone and estradiol in an appropriate way because of the phytoestrogen content. And these are in the Leguminosae family, so they have sort of a bean or pea taste. And some people have a hard time digesting them, so if you use them sparingly and cut them up pretty well. But they're fine to nibble on. And a little further over is Rumex Crispus. This is a very tiny example, but they get probably as long as your arm sometimes. And this is called curly dock. And curly dock is high in oxalic acid. However, despite all the scares about oxalic acid, there's a higher content of oxalic acid in broccoli and in most cruciferous vegetables than there is in this. So a lot of the warnings about oxalic acid are unfounded. And you can completely deactivate oxalic acid by cooking it with a fat. The fat binds to it. And these are kind of tannic. They have a similar taste to oxalis, which also has oxalic acid. They have citric acid, so they have that tart, sort of pungent taste, almost lemony taste. But you have to get them when they're smaller, and definitely curly dock and not patient stock, because patient stock is very, very bitter. Good one to know. Good ones for soup. It's a good cooked green, not as good raw. And a little further is a plant called Onothera Biennis, and evening primrose is the common name for this plant. And evening primrose has a pungent mucilaginous leaf. It's good for salads. I would not necessarily use it as the primary ingredient for a salad, because I think most people would be put off by that taste. And it grows in a basal rosette the first year, with leaves with a very prominent mid-vein. Somewhere over here. Oh, there it is. So this is the second year growth, where it shoots up and it sends up these beautiful flower spikes, and they have these yellow flowers. And they actually use evening primrose oil for the gamma-linoleic acid. If you were to go into a health food store, you'd see GLA oil or evening primrose oil. And that's supposed to help lubricate joints. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's good for hair growth. So save the seeds in the fall when they're in these little sort of seed purse capsules. And you can use them like poppy seeds. Very, very tasty. Kind of have a nutty flavor. But this is a little far along, but these leaves are good cut up in a salad. They're pretty appealing texture, so they're worth nibbling on. And this is also high in vitamin C and K and iron, and generally a very tasty plant. The roots are edible as well, and this one I'm not going to dig up because it's going to be a little gamey tasting, but to give you an idea, the roots are very, very large, and they can go down pretty far. Very similar to a wild carrot root, but they have a pink hue to them. And they're pretty easy to identify because even the younger leaves will have kind of a pinkish hue if it's a first year plant. And the second year plant has those soft mucilaginous leaves that have a pink sort of color on them. And the root can be cooked up like a potato if you were to grate it up and make evening primrose pancakes. And Russ Cohen has a good recipe in his book about that. But another good, easily digestible plant for a salad. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully this inspires you to look around your yard and start identifying the hundreds of edible plants that grow in your area. Stay well.